great. So that was actually a very interesting one. And right now, we are going to be diving into the vibrant world of African storytelling, reimagined by animation. And in the studio with us is Francis Y. Brown, founder and creative director of Animax FYB. And that's one of the products that we just watched there. You're welcome, Francis.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
All
Yourself?
right, fine. So, animation, very interesting. Anyway, what inspired you to tell African stories through animation? Obviously, when I read about this one in particular, it's about, you know, the time we went through COVID. It's inspired with the COVID situation, by the COVID situation. So what actually inspired you to say, okay, we need to tell our stories?
So, actually, what inspired me was through my grandmother. I grew up in a home where every night before I go to bed, she told me bedtime stories. And these stories were very typical local stories. And I was naturally born an artist. So having a griot of a grandmother and merging the two made sense that I just had to tell stories with the medium that I have, which is art. But as I grew older, one thing that caught my attention and my interest a lot was animation. I was watching a lot of Cartoon Networks. You know, when we close from school, sometimes if we don't close from school, we run home just to watch Cartoon Network. So I was thinking about how best can I create animations. But when I got the tools right, then it dawned on me that, okay, now you can create animations. Are you going to create bread and butter and tea kind of animations, or you're going to create things that are relatable? So that is how I come.
Right. Doing this, were there times you faced challenges, or how did you go about it? Was it very difficult for you?
I'll say yes. I have a story about that. It's a bit long, but I'll make it very short. I call the story 2 Cities and a Dream. So I completed NAFTI, National Film and Television Institute, now UNIMAC. And when I was completing school, my final year production was Agokoli. It was winning international awards here and there. It went to over 60 plus festivals, and it won over 40 plus awards worldwide, including me being the first West African student to be shortlisted for Oscars, and also winning Best Animation in Africa that year. So it made me very sought after outside, but I was also so broke. That's where the 2 CDs comes in. I was leaving the hostel only having 2 CDs, so I had to go stay with a friend at Kokomemle. And I told myself I had the opportunity to leave the country to go work for a very reputable studio. But for the passion and love of telling local stories, African stories, also not extracting my talent, as everyone has been doing, all the good talents are leaving the country because they want greener pastures, right? So I decided to stay and build the bridge that we don't have, which ended up creating Animax FYB Studios, which is Ghana's first full-time running animation studio.
Wow.
Right. So how does animation actually preserve and promote African culture and heritage?
Sorry, your question.
So how does animation preserve our culture and heritage as Africans?
I mean, in a lot of ways, we've always been known to be oral storytellers, right? And because of this, we've lost a lot of our stories and even our languages. If you go back into the language, a typical language like Efutu, it's normal. You can't even find people who are from Winneba speaking Efutu. They can't even remember certain words in the language. Certain food, local foods are going extinct. Our way of dressing is going extinct. We are all embracing the esoteric ideas, you know. So animation does justice to it in a way where it is audiovisual. So when we create and we use all of these missing elements and archive them in this medium, it helps the next generations to know that this is truly who we are and how far we've come.
All right, so what are some of the challenges and opportunities of producing animated content that reflects our narrative as Africans? Okay, we can start with the challenges.
Yeah. Okay, so the challenges. So you see, Africa is the youngest continent. You want to say the youngest, I'm not talking about the fact that it is not old,
Right.
but then we have the most youngest population
Yeah.
of youth, right? We have the largest youth population, if I may say. And with this, we have tons of creatives coming out. We have lots and lots of creatives coming out of the continent, but then what we lack is defined or refined talent. Most of them are raw. So when you're creating something and you just know how to create it intuitively, you end up lacking or losing a lot of things that makes your thing very solid. So the very first point is not having the refined talent.
Right.
Also, we have a challenge of infrastructure and also systematic structures. So, for example, we do have Film Board, which is NFA. But then NFA has not really done anything for animation or hasn't placed any structures in place where it's like, we are taking you to the market. We are creating like a film rebate, tax rebate for you to go out there and say that you can do co-productions. Like we do have some of these governmental or systematic challenges that needs to be put in place. We don't also have the infrastructure that will say that, okay, we do have a huge studio that can take on projects like the Disneys, the Pixars, and all that.
Right.
Then last one that everyone will say at the first point is funding. But I believe that if these two things that I mentioned earlier are in place, the funding will flow.
All right.
Right. If I may, do you have any other animation videos aside the one we just watched?
Yes, we do have tons of it.
Because I was watching this one and I was asking, why hasn't this gone viral?
I think for some reason it did, but
I think it did. I
when
think it did that time.
it doesn't go with our name. There's, of course, piracy. So when people take it from your platform, they miss the chance of acknowledging who created it. So.
Right.
Oh,
Okay.
that's
So
it.
before we let you go, how can people reach out to you and what's going on with you right now? How can people reach out?
So we have our social media platforms, which
Right.
is Animax FYB Studios, and personally, you can reach me on LinkedIn or Instagram. That is Francis Y. Brown.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
All right. Any contact details or just social media is fine?
Yeah, social media.
All
is the
right.
best way.
All right. Thank you so much for coming, and then we wish you all the very best. We hope that what you are doing gives you more exposure for you to be recognized and then get the recognition that you need to do. Thank you so much for coming. All right.